Ladies and gentlemen, let me first express my great honor and privilege to be with you today in Mumbai. It's a comeback for me. I've been in Mumbai 12 years ago with my wife. My wife does not change so much, but Mumbai has changed a lot. So I just would like to first thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to share with you a couple of ideas about what would be next in logistics, shipping, and ports. And before starting, I just would like to thank as well my friends from Seahorse, because nothing would have not been possible without you, Captain. Thank you so much for your help. So I've seen that we don't have any animation on my slides, so the pitch, I would do the pitch by myself. Let's try to talk about M&A and alliance. You know more than me about that, but actually the container shipping industry is under merger and acquisition and strategic alliance, which I've never seen at such magnitude today and probably tomorrow. Look at the figures. What is interesting is, in our world, we still have hundreds of companies doing business shipping and container shipping worldwide. Mostly single company with single ships, located mostly in intra-Asia trade. But on main route, like Asia-Europe, 96% of the total fleet deployed is controlled by alliances. And our guess, through our pick, through our analysis, is that in less than 20 years, we should have more or less a maximum of 10 global companies able to support the magnitude of investment for having a global coverage of shipping services. What does it mean? If we take the first four, actually, Maersk Line from Denmark, MSC from Geneva, Napoli, CMA CGM from France, and COSCO from China. Those four guys, those four players, weigh 2/3 of the total amount of cargo trading between Asia and Europe. What does it mean for you, guys? Just to comment before, why do they do that? Why do they concentrate so much? It's because they want to differentiate themselves through premium services. They want as well to raise their productivity. And basically, their own strategy is based off cutting costs, because we are in a tough industry without a lot of revenues guaranteed every month, every day, every year. So transportation cost as well as transaction cost has to be reduced, minimized by strategy of concentration. And by saying that, I would say that the global market will definitely going toward more concentration. And the biggest company, the biggest players will become more powerful. So what does it mean for Indian ports, for the Indian economy? I apologize to point out the fact that you don't have any strong shipping lines for competing worldwide to distribute your national production or to import abroad products into your domestic area. So it means for you, the forthcoming consequences would be in terms of performance and productivity. You would be challenged on your ability and capacity to inject billions of investment into ports, as well as into inland transportation networks. You need to be really innovative to have a forward thinking about what would be the buffer to deal with 10,000 TEUs per car. I just give you an insight. I know that behind me you have Holland. I'm sorry for guys coming from Holland. Yesterday, I commit myself into a journal by explaining the fact that in Rotterdam, in the Maasvlakte 2 terminal, one of the most advanced terminal, state-of-the-art in the world, they are facing a huge problem, actually, because they receive all the alliances coming from Asia. And it takes more or less 4 to 5 days to evacuate all the containers when it's time to deal with 20, 25, up to 50,000 move of containers during one single day. So even in such magnitude, even in such places where you have the most advanced technology, automated terminals, when you have the IT systems totally integrated into all the stakeholders, it's actually a problem to deal with gigantism. Gigantism of the sea has magnitude impact on the gigantism of the inland. So what I would say today is we have to anticipate. Actually, through the Sagarmala initiative, I'm sorry maybe to be a little bit provocative, but you are reducing the gap between the past and today. But through Sagarmala, you are not in the situation of anticipate what would be next in the next generations. And I would show you a couple of, I would say, arguments to prove what I'm saying today in front of you. I'm sorry, it's supposed to flip and blah, blah, blah. There's no flip. So there's no pitch. The pitch is me. I found that figures on the website of the World Bank. Indian freight movement is 2/3 of the movement of cargo in and out of the domestic market, one of the biggest of the world, is by road, is done by road. 25%, 27% to be precise by rail, and less than 1% by waterways. It strikes me that it means that you would have whatever the amount of billions you would put on track, whatever the millions of lines of tracks you would build between here in Mumbai up to New Delhi, you would have congested road. You would have congested train. You need to think about what would be the investment of tomorrow for sizing the volume. And I talk about 100 millions of TUs in next 20 years. 100 millions of TUs. I have some figures to show you afterwards. But from a technology perspective, have you heard about LNG ships? Have you heard about the fact that CMA CGM have launched a couple of weeks ago the world's biggest box ships, 22,000 TUs, fueled by LNG? Is that integrated into your plan, your strategic plan for being at the top level of the future terminal in the Indian coast? I'm not so sure about that. The only area of the world which is anticipating that effect is in the Baltic Seas for environmental reasons. The port of Gothenburg is one of the most advanced to deal with big ships fueled by LNG. And it's not just a container on manufactured goods. Look at what is going on with Hyundai. Hyundai wants to as well power dry bulk ships with LNG. Are you able to accommodate those ships in the next decade or not? So when I said concentration of shipping lines, when I said concentration of power into few alliances, they would put you under pressure. They would put another kind of competition between not only terminals, not only ports, as well as countries. You have to bear in mind that it's a competition which starts maybe far away from India, and you would be skipped if you are not able to accommodate or anticipate the needs for the accommodation of those kind of ships. And finally, have you heard about that? Tesla, you know Elon Musk. He's a crazy guy, but he's quite successful actually. And he developed two things in logistics: automated trucks, green automated trucks, and not automated, but green barges. Previously, some people talk about barges between terminals and between ports into an intercoastal Indian perspective, have you think about plugging those electric ships tomorrow for barging? It's interesting for anticipation, because actually it's quite challenging to defend that regarding the Prime Minister's strategy or initiative to explain that, okay, what you are doing is fine, but you have to look at mid-term perspective or even long-term perspective, putting a little bit more emphasis about what would be next. And look at that. Whoops. Yeah. Everybody is talking about disruptive stuff and blah, blah, blah about technology. I am absolutely not convinced about that, except one thing. Something is happening today. Why? Because all the stakeholders involved into global value chains want to deal with data on the collaborative perspective. They don't want to work in silo anymore because it costs too much. Too much for the freight forwarders, too much for shipping lines. I know that I've seen some people from CMA CGM. They have launched a huge initiative in Marseille, The Box. It's putting some freak guys, absolutely not concerned by shipping, but they are top-notch experts in IT. And let's think out of the box, as the man said previously. Apply your knowledge into our very conservative world. Break the walls. Try to implement a real integrated global value chain solutions. I apologize again to say that when it's time to implement a PCS, just a PCS, a piece of the global value chain, it's a dramatic nightmare to have the big boss of the customs agree with the big boss of the shipping industry, agree with the big boss of the port authority. And mostly the most, I would say, influent is sometimes against, is sometimes evolving around the project, and it takes years to implement a PCS. So just imagine how the challenge is to put everybody around the same table. I used to say to my students, PPP means public-private partnerships. Actually, it's more a public-public partnerships. How you succeed to deal with all agencies, to have the same strategic visions, to share the information, because the information is absolutely key, and not IT. IT is a tool. It's a way to achieving the exchange, the intelligence exchange of information. When you have the information, you can change the way of doing logistics. And why I'm saying that? Because data means interconnectivity as well as flexibility. Of course, and I have to say that, efficiency means more money in your pocket at the end of the day because you cut procedures, you cut days of delays, you cut bribes, you cut informal activity, which has not, I would say, no reasons to exist anymore in our world today. Just to remind you, 1 containers on 2, 50% of the containers arrived on time. Only 1 on 2. It's unacceptable, especially for the new kids on the blocks, like Amazon, Alibaba. And those guys, they control what? They control the shipment and they control the data. And I do believe that the GAFA, Google is not so much, but Amazon, Facebook is not so much. It's just to exchange information about my daughter and my wife, the same as 12 years ago. Alibaba. Do you know how many shipments has been made by Amazon in the US last year? 1 billion. 1 billion. Small pieces, really small pieces, but really reliable, fast, productive shipments, because we cannot afford to deliver after the date. For the same Valentine's Day, you have beautiful diamonds, but it arrives on the 16th of February. She's not going to be happy with you. So, what does it mean for you? My feeling is the planets are aligning. Because those guys, like Amazon, said, okay, I would do by myself. I would not let traditional carrier keeping my shipment into a very conservative way of shipping my stuff. I am customer-centric. I want to have a digital customer experience to share with my customers because they pay a bunch for that. It's not cheap. Have you heard about like cheap company or low-cost shipping company? It does not exist. Not really, because we don't want to have that. It's already the case. We do not pay so much. We are at the level of the low cost. Actually, what he's looking for is a premium service. You would accept to pay a piece more of money, but you would request, request, I guess, a premium service. And Amazon, look at what is Soren Skou. Soren Skou is the CEO of Maersk. He said, and I like very much that, if we don't do our job well, this guy is the leader. 20% of the container flows around the world is under his control. Is the guys who have the light. He said there's no doubt that big, strong companies like Amazon will look into whether they can do better themselves. This is exactly what we are now. And I don't have the solutions about what would be the solutions of tomorrow by those guys, how they would transform the containerization into a premium service. I don't know. I really don't know. What I know is it would cost a little bit more. We would have to accept that the globalization would have a real impact of our way of consuming, our way of anticipating what we would like to pay for. This is what is really interesting. What I like very much, because I don't have any clue about what is blockchain, IoT, and so on. The only thing I understand is data is the backbone of those new strategic relationships between like a port, like Rotterdam, IBM, and a couple of big players like Maersk Line or Walmart. What I like very much as well is to see that it's like a phantasm, you know. Oh, maybe one day we would have ships with Amazon flag. Maybe. Does it change something? I don't know. It's the way of processing the shipment process. It's the way of organizing the logistics flows. They are not wizards. They just think the business as we are now for a long time ago in a different angle, I guess. They put the customers and the digital revolution as maybe the real disruptive factor. And I don't want, I guess I am in the time is clocking, but I guess I got a couple of minutes more to conclude. What I like very much is when we've met a couple of months ago in the port of Le Havre in Normandy, I've said one thing. You are 1 billion. And you know you have the McDonald index, you know that? You have, it's the Big Mac index, it's not the McDonald index, you have the Big Mac index. What I like very much is the number of TUs per habitant. Here, it's 10 TUs per habitant. In Western Europe, it's more than 100. You are front of a treasure. It's a mining gold. Because people want to consume. They want to consume maybe in a better way, in a smarter way, in a more secure way, but they want to consume. So you have to provide the solutions for making them the next generation of consumers. So from 10 to 100 TUs per 1,000 inhabitants, it means that 100 million TU would have to be handled in Indian ports in 20 years. Look at the figures on the right. In red, you get the Chinese guys. Here we talk about 2,000 to 200 millions of TEUs. Here we are 10 million of TEUs in red. That's for India. So look at the curve. Definitely you cannot go against that. You just have to tackle the issue on a smart way. And I would say on a smarter way. And to conclude, maybe the best way to do that is to do that together. And to do that together is to reform first. I used to work with emerging countries. I do not consider India as an emerging one. It's more than that. You are far away from emerging. But one main constraint when I talk with shipping lines calling Indian ports, when I talked with DP World, when I talked with Bolloré, who has an experience in India now, they said how complicated it is to just understand who is doing what, when, for which price. Wow. It's like playing poker. You never know. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But mostly you lose. So build up an attractive business ecosystem means that the public body must have the courage of reforming the system. But they need to be advised by skilled people. They need to do the good reforms. So they need to put all the public, PPP, public stakeholders around the same table for sharing and co-building the same vision, the same solution. And there's not one, there's many solutions which have to be combined. So you need to have the government and ministry. You need to have port authorities. And by the way, you need to have customs. You need as well to have the private sector. All the people working into the value chain of India. Importers, exporters, logistics forwarders, customs declaration, blah, blah, blah. Everything needs to be put into the same basket for sharing the challenge. And the port is an amazing ecosystem. You need to be, I guess, I do believe that the port are still gateway, revenue gateway. But you need to have to size the responsibility of showing how green you are, how smart you are. For whom? For the people. They would not let you do whatever you want. That's exactly what is considering now in France, in Europe, in the United States, without the agreement, I would say, of the social society. You are not able to do whatever you want. So what I like very much with the 5 cos, and that's, I don't talk about animals. 5 cos mean co-produce, together, collaborate, co-initiate the vision of tomorrow for sharing the revenues, the values, as well as the risks. You do not have to put the risk on the same shoulders all the time. This is a little bit sometimes the case for port authorities. They have to take care of everybody. First, the shipping lines. And actually, because of the concentration of flows into several hands, they put a lot of pressure on you. They want to have cheaper services, but efficient services, reliable services, productive services, but they don't want to pay the price for. Because they know that if you are not able to satisfy them, they would call the next one. I'm sorry to say that, but you know, I would tell you something. Have you seen the Chinese investment around India? Think about it. They are in Bangladesh, they are in Pakistan, they are in Sri Lanka. It's alternatives for feedering in case of it's not sufficient, or if it's not reliable, or if it's not, I would say, enough attractive to go straight. You would not have the time for freezing a ship 1 week because the job has not properly done. So what I like very much, and it comes from the Dutch guys, they are really clever. They talk about license to grow. I liked it very much. You need to anticipate how you would have the license to grow for the next 2 decades. And it goes far away from Sharmala, I guess. It's not purely infrastructure's vision. You need to have the license to operate. And you need to have the license to develop, and of course, not the license to kill. And I guess it's time for concluding, and I would say, thank you very much. I really appreciate, again, to be with you, and I'm fully available for answering to your question. Thank you so much.